Revolutionary nationalism grew across Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries due to the influence of the French Revolution. As the power of the Ottoman Empire declined, Greek nationalism began to assert itself. The most influential of the Greek writers and intellectuals was Rigas. Deeply influenced by the French Revolution, Rigas was the first to conceive and organize a comprehensive national movement aiming at the liberation of all Balkan nations. In 1797, Rigas was arrested by Austrian officials. He was handed over to Ottoman officials and transported to Belgrade along with his co-conspirators. All of them were strangled to death in June 1798, and their bodies were dumped in the Danube. The death of Rigas fanned the flames of Greek nationalism. His nationalist poem, the Diakos, War Song, was translated into a number of Western European and later Balkan languages and served as a rallying cry for Greeks against Ottoman rule. Phareo's martyrdom was to inspire three young Greek merchants, Nikolaos Skoufas, Emmanuel Xanthos, and Athanasius Sokolov. Influenced by the Italian Carbonari and profiting from their own experience, they founded in 1814 the secret Filiki Eteria, Friendly Society, in Odessa, an important center of the Greek mercantile diaspora in Russia. With the support of wealthy Greek exile communities in Britain and the United States, and with the aid of sympathizers in Western Europe, they planned a rebellion. The Filiki Eteria expanded rapidly and was soon able to recruit members in all areas of the Greek world and among all elements of the Greek society. At the time, the great powers, allied in the concert of Europe in opposition to revolutions in the aftermath of Napoleon I of France, were preoccupied with revolts in Italy and Spain. It was in this context that the Greeks judged the time ripe for their own revolt. The plan originally involved uprisings in three places: the Peloponnese, the Danubian principalities, and Constantinople. Alexander Ypsilantis was elected as the head of the Filiki Eteria in April 1820 and took upon himself the task of planning the insurrection. His intention was to raise all the Christians of the Balkans in rebellion and perhaps force Russia to intervene on their behalf. On February 22nd, he crossed the river Prut with his followers, entering the Danubian principalities. In order to encourage the local Romanian Christians to join him, he announced that he had the support of a great power, implying Russia. 2 days after crossing the Prut, at Three Holy Hierarchs Monastery in Yashi, Ypsilantis issued a proclamation calling all Greeks and Christians to rise up against the Ottomans. Fight for faith and fatherland. The time has come, O Hellenes. Michael Sautsos, then Prince of Moldavia and a member of Filiki Eteria, set his guard at Ypsilantis' disposal. In the meanwhile, Patriarch Gregory V of Constantinople and the Synod had anathematized and excommunicated both Ypsilantis and Sautsos, issuing many encyclicals, an explicit denunciation of the revolution in line with the Orthodox Church's policy. Kapodistrias, the foreign minister of Russia, was ordered by Alexander I to send Ypsilantis a letter upbraiding him for misusing the mandate received from the Tsar. Kapodistrias announced to Ypsilantis that his name had been struck off the army list and that he was commanded to lay down arms. Ypsilantis tried to ignore the letter, but Vladimirescu took this as the end of his alliance with the Eteria. A conflict erupted inside the camp, and Vladimirescu was tried and put to death by the Eteria on June 2nd. The loss of their Romanian allies, followed by an Ottoman intervention on Wallachian soil, sealed defeat for the Greek exiles and culminated in the disastrous Battle of Dragashani and the destruction of the Sacred Band on June 19th. Alexander Ypsilantis, accompanied by his brother Nicholas and a remnant of his followers, retreated to Ramnicu Valsia, where he spent some days negotiating with the Austrian authorities for permission to cross the frontier. Fearing that his followers might surrender him to the Turks, he gave out that Austria had declared war on Turkey, caused a Te Deum to be sung in Kosia Monastery, and on pretext of arranging measures with the Austrian commander-in-chief, he crossed the frontier. However, the reactionary policies of the Holy Alliance were enforced by Francis II, and the country refused to give asylum for leaders of revolts in neighboring countries. Ypsilantis was kept in close confinement for 7 years. In Moldavia, the struggle continued for a while under Jurgakis Olympios and Ioannis Varmakis, but by the end of the year the provinces had been pacified by the Ottomans. The outbreak of the war was met by mass executions, pogrom-style attacks, the destruction of churches, and looting of Greek properties throughout the empire. The most severe atrocities occurred in Constantinople in what became known as the Constantinople Massacre of 1821. The Orthodox Patriarch Gregory V was executed on April 22, 1821, on the orders of the Sultan, despite his opposition to the revolt, which caused outrage throughout Europe and resulted in increased support for the Greek rebels. The Peloponnese, with its long tradition of resistance to the Ottomans, was to become the heartland of the revolt. The crucial meeting was held at Vostitsa, modern Aegean, where chieftains and prelates from all over the Peloponnese assembled on January 26th. Among them were a representative of the Filiki Eteria, the pro-revolutionary priest Papaflesis, and a representative of the senior clergy, Metropolitan Germanos of Patras. Upon receiving news of Ypsilantis' march into the Danubian principalities, the decision was taken to revolt. According to oral tradition, the revolution was declared on March 25th, 1821 by Metropolitan Germanos of Patras, who raised a banner with the cross in the monastery of Agia Lavra, Achaia. On March 17, 1821, war was declared on the Turks by the Maniots in Areopoli. The same day, a force of 2,000 Maniots under the command of Petros Mavromichalis advanced on the Messenian town of Alamana, where they united with troops under Theodoros Kolokotronis, Nikitaras, and Papaflesis. Kalamata fell to the Greeks on March 23rd. In Achaia, the town of Kalavrita was besieged on March 21st, and in Patras conflicts lasted for many days. The Ottomans launched sporadic attacks towards the city while the revolutionaries, led by Panayotis Karatzis, drove them back to the fortress. By the end of March, the Greeks effectively controlled the countryside, while the Turks were confined to the fortresses, most notably those of Patras, Rio, Acrocorinth, Monemvasia, Nafplion, and the provincial capital, Tripolitsa. All these were loosely besieged by local irregular forces under their own captains, since the Greeks lacked artillery. With the exception of Tripolitsa, all cities had access to the sea and could be resupplied and reinforced by the Ottoman fleet. Since May, Kolokotronis organized the siege of Tripolitsa, and, in the meantime, Greek forces twice defeated the Turks, who unsuccessfully tried to repulse the besiegers. Finally, Tripolitsa was seized by the Greeks on 23 September, and the city was given over to the mob for 2 days. After lengthy negotiations, the Turkish forces surrendered Acrocorinth on January 14, 1822. In central Greece, the revolt began in Phocis on March 24th and Salona on March 27th. In Boeotia, Livadia was captured by Athanasius Diakos on March 31st, followed by Thebes 2 days later. When the revolution began, most of the Christian population of Athens fled to Salamis. Missolonghi revolted on May 25th, and the revolution soon spread to other cities of western central Greece. The Ottoman commander in the Rumeli was the Albanian general Omer Vrioni. The initial Greek successes were soon put in peril after 2 subsequent defeats at the battles of Alamana and Eleftherohori against the army of Omer Vrioni. Another significant loss for the Greeks was the death of Diakos, a promising military leader who was captured in Alamana and executed by the Turks when he refused to declare allegiance to the Sultan. The Greeks managed to halt the Turkish advance at the Battle of Gravia under the leadership of Odysseus Andritsos. With a handful of men, inflicted heavy casualties upon the Turkish army. After his defeat and the successful retreat of Andritso's force, Omer Vrioni postponed his advance towards Peloponnese, awaiting reinforcements. Instead, he invaded Livadia, which he captured on June 10th, and Athens, where he lifted the siege of the Acropolis. After a Greek force of 2,000 men managed to destroy at Vasilika a Turkish relief army on its way to Vrioni, the latter abandoned Attica in September and retreated to Ionia. By the end of 1821, the revolutionaries had managed to secure their positions in central Greece.